What's the worst vegetable to serve on a boat?
I don't know.
Leeks.
Oh, wow.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Square podcast where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from the Chef vs. Baker. This week, we are talking about E. coli.
Food recalls.
Let's talk about it.
Talk you're looking for. Hungry Squared, yeah, Hungry Squared.
Hello, Sharon.
Hey, Winter, how's it going?
Oh my gosh. I'm a little excited about this topic. I don't know why. It's fascinating. It's one of those, it's like a train wreck that you can't
look away.
So I'm a little excited about that. The week's been good.
Yeah.
So how about yours?
It's a good week. I have had a lot of food wins in my kitchen lately, so I'm excited about that.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Been on a roll.
That's great.
Got my meal plan all done for the week, and I made a couple new recipes, and it's been good.
And they worked out, and people like it.
Yep.
That is a food win.
Yeah. Score. I'm super excited.
Strong work. Did you buy anything fun for your kitchen over Black Friday / Cyber Monday?
I did not buy an Instant Pot.
Sharon!
But
they are super on sale all over the place. I'm just saying.
They are super on sale right now, you guys. I did get a kitchen utensil or a kitchen tool, I guess.
Yeah.
I got an extra big sheet pan.
Oh, those are money.
They are. This is from Nordic Ware.
Yes, I have that exact one. They're money.
Yeah. I'm super excited. It doesn't fit in the dishwasher, but it fits in the oven just barely.
But that's good. You need that surface area.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, that is awesome. Nordic Ware makes nice pans.
Yeah, they do.
And the cutest, coolest designs ever bundt pans.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Just
they're
so
beautiful.
Cool and beautiful and well designed. Good job, Nordic Ware. Should we jump into the food nerd shout out?
Yeah. Food nerd shout out.
Okay, we're really excited about this, Sharon. I just shared it with Sharon.
I'm very excited.
Okay, well, I want to say that we have some of the awesomest fans ever. We have the best fans ever. And the food nerds out there. And one of our really awesome
food nerd family is Joyce. And we've talked about Joyce before because she's been so nice and she's reached out a few times. And so, but she sent 2 emails, Sharon. Yes.
And she really, I think we may be driving her a little crazy. Just a little. Because we've changed our format, but we haven't got any sound effects, as you guys may have heard in previous episodes. And so she was kind enough to share a couple of sound effects that she made. So
that are kind of professional and I really like.
I do too. And she just sent really some quick emails that said, wanted to see if he could use this on the podcast. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce one of those lovely sound effects.
Let's dig into the kitchen drawer.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I got an early Christmas present today.
You did?
So it's the Nordic Ware pan.
Yes.
It's the big sheet pan.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to use it. Now on the packaging, so it's just the sheet pan and then they kind of sticky tack. It's not glue. They kind of do the sticky tack of a big paper board onto it that's printed. And it's the big sheet pan. That's what it's called.
The big sheet pan.
So I have, I believe, either half or quarter size sheet pans that are aluminum in my kitchen, and they're very nice. But this one takes the cake, I think, and I might get a couple more just so I can have, at least just so I could have 2. I don't know.
You should have at least 2, I think.
But I could roast all the vegetables this winter, make all of the oven fries for all of us. So we can all have enough.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and it wouldn't be crowded too, because that's the key. If they're all touching, then they're not going to get crispy.
Yeah. So that's my dig into the kitchen drawer tool I'm very excited about right now.
That is super awesome.
And on the packaging, it's it says, make twice as many cookies at one time or something like that. And it's got a picture of cookies and they look delicious. But really what I'm looking forward to is roasting a bunch of vegetables in that thing.
It'll be so nice. This will be so awesome. This one is, I'm trying to find.
So it's aluminum, so it doesn't rust.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a nice lip on it. That's about an inch or maybe slightly taller than an inch. It's got a good weight, but it's not heavy at the same time. So aluminum is really nice because you get more of an even heat with that.
Yeah.
You don't get like the hot or cold spots, that kind of thing. Like those air bake cookie sheets that were super popular late 90s to early 2000s. They were just kind of like the flat piece of metal that kind of had these weird things on the bottom. And it kind of wrapped over another thing, another piece of metal. And so there was space in between them and they called it an air bake cookie sheet.
Yeah.
That always had hot and cold spots for me.
Yeah.
Those never worked very well.
It's a little tricky.
But the solid aluminum is where it's at, you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my dig into the kitchen drawer. I'm super excited to roast vegetables on this. I haven't used it yet, but I have figured out that it does fit in my oven. And there is a little bit of room around each side, just barely. It fits most of the oven rack.
That's fine.
So I
fine.
think that it's going to be fine, just fine for what I'm going to be using it for.
Yeah.
So,
you just need space.
Yeah.
You need real estate.
I need some real estate and I need the heat to kind of go around it evenly. And so I think that's what I'm going to find, but I will rate it
later.
At a later date.
At a later date. Okay, everybody. This is exciting.
Stay tuned.
We love Nordic Wear. They were one of our original sponsors. And so if you get a chance to go look at their stuff, it is lovely and good and made in the United States.
Made in the U.S.
Just want to say that's pretty awesome.
I went to a local kitchen store here in Salt Lake City. It's called Gigi. And they've got a bunch of stuff on sale right now.
Oh, sweet.
So I think I got it for like 25% off or something.
Man, that's awesome. Okay. One thing I do want to say that the cooking surface on that particular, the big sheet, the Naturals big sheet, I think is what it is 19 inches by 13 inches. So it's 19 and a half inches by 13 and a half wide and it's 1 inch tall. So it's got a good little lip. So got something to hold on to and you're going to love it, I think, Sharon, because I love mine.
Yeah,
it's
going to be great.
Okay, good.
And now for the main course.
Well, let's get down to our main topic, food recalls.
Sharon, now we just had Thanksgiving.
We did.
And I just want to say there was a whole ton of memes happening around Thanksgiving.
There was.
Do you know what they were about?
About how pie is healthier than lettuce right now.
Yes. And one of my favorite ones was when people marked themselves safe from romaine lettuce. That was one of my favorite ones because it had like the little blue Facebook flag that said mark safe and stuff. And then there was my favorite one is there was like a picture of the Ricola, the cough drops.
Oh yeah.
And you know how there's usually a guy playing a huge long alpine horn.
Yep.
There, instead of playing an alpine horn, he was playing a romaine lettuce that somebody photoshopped in and had E. coli coming out of it. It was awesome. I'm just saying it was really awesome. And so we decided to talk about food recalls because we've been kind of hit with a few of them this year.
We have, and it's been a lot of lettuce, you guys.
A lot of lettuce.
A lot of romaine lettuce.
Isn't that crazy? I just wanted to talk really quickly about how food recalls actually work.
Okay.
Because we know that they happen and we hear them every so often, but there are a lot of food recalls that happen every single year. I actually don't know what has happened in 2018 so far, but we know of at least a couple of big ones. But I was really surprised. I was looking at a report for 2016 and somebody said that it's close to about 8,000 different products that are pulled off of shelves every year. And I was like, what? 8,000 different products? I was shocked.
8,000?
Yeah. And I think maybe there's some things that we just may not know about, and maybe smaller companies and not as big of outbreaks of certain things, but I was really shocked by that. So anyway, so these particular recalls were done by the USDA, or the Food and Drug Administration was also another organization that could do a recall. That they 2/3 of these recalls that they mentioned had occurred were class 1, which means that there was reasonable probability that the food would cause illness or death. Hello,
Illness or death?
yeah,
No big deal.
yikes. So thankfully, there's been a few things that have come down the line to get us to where we're at right now. I just want to point out, did you ever read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle?
No, but I know what it is. It's a novel that was written, kind of Industrial Revolution time.
Yep.
A little bit later into it, like early 1900s, I guess.
Yeah. It was published in 1906. And this novelist, Upton Sinclair, he actually was considered a muckraker. He basically went underground. He was disguised and worked in the meatpacking plant and observed things. And he wanted to write this novel about the plight of the immigrant at that time, right? Because the immigrants were worked in harsh conditions. They were underpaid. It was not good. There was a lot of poverty in it. If I have not read it before, but reading excerpts from it from 10th grade English or whenever I've read that, or maybe it was in American history. Anyway, instead of the thing that this book brought about was not necessarily, I'm sure there was some information, some tweaking of the heartstrings for the harsh conditions that these immigrants had to live through and how hard it was to be an immigrant at that time. But what people really got turned onto or turned off of is he basically exposed all the health violations and the unsanitary conditions and practices that were happening in the meatpacking industry at the time in America.
Wow.
And so, and that caused a whole series of things to occur because of that. So, and I love this quote that Sinclair said. He said, "I aimed at the public's heart, and by accident, I hit it in the stomach," because everybody was super grossed out by it. So, thankfully, because of these types of things that occur, laws have been put into place. Now, the Food and Drug Administration was created to have some sort of oversight on how food and drugs are labeled and are looked over. There was a law in 2011 even that was called the Food Safety and Modernization Act. And this actually gave the FDA a little bit more authority now in our day and age. So this was in 2011 to force companies to recall food versus waiting for a voluntary recall. Because a lot of times they don't have the...
Before then, we were waiting for them to volunteer
and give that information. The only reason why I know...
Oh my gosh.
It was 2011. I thought...
I'm surprised we're all still living.
Isn't it amazing? This is the thing. So I thought this was kind of interesting because companies can actually recall for a lot of reasons, but they're only required to do in the cases of adulterated foods. And we were talking about this prior to starting recording, is that it typically refers to this adulterated food term is written into food safety law in 1938, actually just refers to food that contains known poisons, was prepared under insanitary conditions, and anything that has been omitted or substituted on the written label.
Oh, okay.
So there was really only a handful of things. You got a poison in it, unsanitary conditions, and if the label was incorrect, right? Food allergens are kind of if you think about it that way. They were only required to do that in the case of those adulterated foods. If something happened where there was an E. coli breakout,
it was suspected but maybe not known.
Yeah, they didn't really have to say much about it if they didn't want to, because they weren't breaking the law. I know, isn't that yikes? So now, obviously, they've gotten a little bit more savvy to it, and they have food safety inspection services that are part of this. They require people to have a plan of how they monitor food. So they have companies are required to have this HACCP plan, which basically helps them keep track of things that could potentially contaminate the food that is out there. Oh man, this scares me so much.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, and I really appreciated a couple of articles that I was reading, but ultimately what happens and how a food gets recalled or how they pinpoint how a food is contaminated and where it came from.
How do they figure that out?
Usually it starts at a hospital. If you think about it, right? So somebody comes in and they usually have some sort of service or person that's identified that is in charge of monitoring, right? Monitoring weird sicknesses.
Like the infectious disease department.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Kind of maybe associated with your state health board.
Mm-hmm.
And so they keep an eye on those things. And one of the things I'm referencing is this lady at this one particular hospital with the E. coli breakout this last summer with the lettuce. She got a report from a culture, and that she always gets these reports because if anything weird gets reported, it goes to her and she has to investigate what happened. So she got E. coli. It showed up as E. coli, and kind of one of the strains that is kind of the most deadly that could shut down your kidneys, you could die from it. So she went and talked to this lady as they were trying to, pump fluids into her and keep her alive and keep her kidneys working. But she grilled her on what she ate within the last 10 days to 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't know about you, Sharon, but I love food and I sometimes kind of keep track of my food occasionally, but I can't. If I had to ask you what you ate for lunch last Wednesday, would you be able to recall that?
No.
Yeah. And I'm like, ooh. So this job that she has is to kind of pull out as much information from this person that was sick. So she gets the information. She has some information. That's all she has. She has like a little bit of information. And then a second case happens. Same strain of E. coli. And so she runs down to that patient, talks to them, kind of figures out, starts piecing things together and like, okay, where did this come from? Oh, it just so happens that both of these people had salads at Panera,
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so then she's like, okay, let me see. So that's suspect. So she calls it into her bosses who said, makes a note. And I think it was at the state health board. That person makes a note like, okay, couple of cases at Panera. Okay. It could be at a store.
Right.
Where it was identified as just maybe one person that wasn't
an unsanitary condition at the particular store.
Exactly. But then this head honcho state, I think it was, like I said, it was probably a state health board. She started to get additional reports from other places outside that were outside of like Panera. And so they're like trying to figure it out. So they start piecing things together and they come down to, and they start reporting like at Costco, one of their salads. And so they finally figure out like it came from salad and what are the things in the salad. And they finally came down to the thing that the most common denominator out of all these things was the lettuce. So then they're like, okay, where did the lettuce come from? But that's the tricky thing is that when food manufacturers get stuff, they're like, okay, well, we got it from these farmers, but it was a bunch of farmers. And so
or they don't know exactly where they got it. Like Costco may not know because they got it from like a hub.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like Kirkland packages it or whatever.
And they have some records and stuff, but they're sometimes not super accurate or well documented.
I mean, they could trace it. They could for sure trace it, but it would take a while to get down that.
And that's exactly what happened in
detail
in the case of one of these first E. coli breakouts. And so what ended up happening was that they finally kind of figured out that if it's the romaine lettuce that's in these salads, right? There are really only a couple places that romaine the lettuce is grown. And one place is in California and one place is in Arizona. And so they went out and like they kind of pinpointed, oh, it's probably this one in Arizona that is causing the issue, like anything that was grown in Arizona. And the funny thing is that they have opposite growing seasons. So they Arizona's growing some, and then when they're done, then California comes in and does their thing. So the FDA came out and basically said, don't eat romaine lettuce that was grown in Arizona. Unfortunately, everybody heard don't eat romaine lettuce.
Right.
So they just threw it out, sent it back, whatever. But I understand that because I don't know where that was grown.
Right.
I picked it up at my
picked
local
up a
grocery
head
store.
of romaine lettuce at my grocery store.
So-
I have no idea where it came from.
Yeah. So of course you're going to just throw it out. It cost $1.50 or whatever. So obviously that made a huge hit, and drug recalls actually can affect an industry, not just a farm or but when there was the huge 2010, there was a huge salmonella outbreak in eggs. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't just hit. I mean, there was these eggs obviously affected some of these major egg farms. Egg farms, is that a thing? That doesn't quite sound right to me. Anyway,
Egg producers.
That probably works. It actually affected all eggs because people are like, well, I don't know, eggs. I'm not going to buy them.
Right.
Who knows where they're coming from?
Right. It's just a store-bought package. It
Yeah.
doesn't say much on it.
I know. Isn't that crazy? And so there's estimates of billions of dollars being lost because people just stopped buying a certain product because they just didn't know where it was coming from. So they were worried and they just didn't want to mess with it. So they ate something else.
Which is another problem that we have, just especially in the United States, the food labeling.
Oh, yeah.
Our food labels could really use an
overhaul. Yeah.
To know exactly where our food is produced.
Yeah.
Even if it's a generic brand or something like that, it's just helpful to know where it came from.
Yeah. In this case of the romaine lettuce, after they identified certain cases, and then as they started to get more information about other cases happening throughout the country, that's when they were able to pinpoint which area it was coming from. And then they kind of were able to even hone in on several farms that were getting irrigation water from a canal that is close to kind of the stomping grounds of some cows.
Oh, don't say it.
So, I mean, and the FDA will go out and look at that and kind of figure out what to do or what to say. But obviously that has affected romaine lettuce, the crops of these farmers and them wanting to produce something. It totally affected the California folks because by the time the recall came out, they were done with their crop. The Arizona folks were done with their crop. So California was starting to come out with their crop and nobody bought it.
Right.
And they were don't buy romaine lettuce. Nobody knows that it's coming from California, not Arizona. And so they had to destroy all of their product, basically. Wah, wah.
That's sad.
I know. It's so sad. And then I think you're going to talk a little bit more about this, but there are certain things that can maybe be reused. That sounds terrible. If it's been recalled and sent back, like meat, for example. If one of these food inspection things or the companies plan to monitor if there's anything contaminated, like if meat, for example, detects a pathogen or something like that and they can't send that out, then they'll cook it to a temperature that will kill off the pathogen and then use it in something else, some other product. For example, pet food. Happens quite a bit. Occasionally frozen foods for humans.
Ew.
So, but once again, technically it's safe.
Well, it depends on the pathogen.
It depends on the pathogen, but they have things in place in order to ensure that it has been eliminated. Because obviously you can see that food recalls affect a company so much financially.
Right.
So for them to have that, to be able to stop that from the get-go instead of having it go out and then have to recall it and affect their entire industry, that is much better doing that. So that's kind of in a nutshell of how things are discovered. Nowadays, I'm sure it was much less sophisticated back in the day. Just a bunch of people got sick.
It's true. It's true.
Right?
So in ancient times, ancient Rome, the Roman Empire, there is wide speculation that the Romans, particularly the elite of the Romans, suffered from chronic to severe lead poisoning due to the quantity of lead that was in the pots and pans that they used. So when you had something acidic, like a tomato, or I'm not sure if they had tomatoes, but
probably lemons or whatever.
Right.
They had tomatoes. No, I don't know.
Anyways,
it's a nightshade family. So
an acidic food
Yes.
was cooked or boiled in them, that's going to leach out that lead. So they had quite a bit of exposure to lead that way, also through their water pipes, because those were made out of lead.
Yep.
And they flavored their wine with sugar of lead.
What?
They sweetened the wine with something called sugar of lead, which is actually lead acetate.
What?
Are
you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
wow.
Lead acetate is also known as sugar of lead or lead sugar. It's a white crystalline chemical compound with a sweet taste, sweetish.
Really?
And it's made by treating lead with acetic acid.
Okay.
They put that in the wine because it's sweet. Put that in that wine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was kind of a purposeful and not necessarily a recall, I don't think, because they probably were not aware.
No.
I'm going to put that just out there. But yeah, they had kind of a chronic lead poisoning problem.
Just a baseline lead poisoning. No big deal.
Yeah. There was, in the Middle Ages in Europe, there was lots of incidents of poisoning due to the consumption of rye bread infected with certain funguses. So
good old funguses.
Right.
Good old fungi.
Let's see. There was in 1857 in London, there was an adulteration of bread with alum, and that caused rickets in people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's just a lot, like poisoned bread, poisoned sweets with arsenic. This was in the 1800s. Okay.
Arsenic, no big deal.
Yeah. There was the 1900 English beer poisoning. There was beer contaminated with arsenic. Again, arsenic.
How did they find these out? I guess people just got really sick /
well, it was an epidemic of 6,070 cases, including 70 deaths. So it was traced to sugar manufactured with sulfuric acid, which was naturally contaminated with arsenic from some Spanish pyrite. So anyway, like fool's gold type thing.
So they
don't eat that. Don't put that in your beer.
Don't do that. Don't do that. So once again, a lot of cases started to show up.
Yeah.
And they finally were able to figure out where it came from.
Yeah.
What the cause of it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just terrible, like early 1900s and the 1800s and early 1900s. It was kind of a terrible time for these food recalls / foodborne illnesses.
Oh, yeah.
Type thing.
It was a hot mess.
Which foodborne illness would be, technically that's a different class than like E. coli or salmonella.
Yeah.
That's more like not washing your hands and being unsanitary, but still just a bad time in those times for
there was a few things that we still didn't understand as
like
humanity
lead and common poisons.
Common poisons. Yeah.
So some of the more famous recalls, mad cow disease. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That was a huge recall-ish type
of it was a huge ban on beef. And that lasted for actually 10 years, from 1996 to 2006. British beef was banned
from entire
export.
Like export in general.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just the EU, but it was
banned from export.
Whew, that's rough.
They had to destroy a lot of cattle. It was actually really unfortunate in that regard. Just in 1996, they had to destroy over 1 million cattle, and they incinerate them. I'm not sure how they're.
Whoa.
They actually had to destroy it. Super sad. I don't know if you remember, giving blood back then was kind of a big deal. That was one of the questions that you got asked by the Red Cross or a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever if you ever had an opportunity to give blood or get blood, like that was one of those questions that they asked, have you been to Europe? I think they the question was broadened. It wasn't just the UK, but they broadened it to Europe. but it was these UK cows.
You know what? I think now that
British cows.
you say that, actually, I had spent some time in Russia around that time, and I could not give blood.
Yeah, probably because you consumed a meat product.
Yeah, and it was questionable of where it came from and such.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, that was a very big.
So mad cow disease, that's a common name for bovine spongiform encephalopathy,
Yeah.
which is, they abbreviate it to BSE.
Mm-hmm.
So how they got it was BSE originated in the early 80s when cows were fed byproducts from sheep who suffered from a brain disease called scrappy.
Yep. Remember we talked about this with the sheep too?
Yeah.
The haggis.
Yes, the haggis. So anyways, humans are not susceptible to sheep scrappy, but there's a mainly hereditary human brain disease that's similar to scrappy in that it's caused by a similar prion, which is a chemically stable protein aggregate.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a mainly hereditary human brain disease similar to scrappy, caused by a similar prion or protein that scrappy is caused by.
Mm-hmm.
But in the human form, it's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease,
Yep.
CJD, and it strikes mostly old people in old age, similar to dementia. It starts with a loss of coordination, then leads to dementia.
Yeah.
It kind of has similar symptoms to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And it eventually will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
In 1995 and 1996, 10 relatively young British people, Britons, died from a new variant of CJD. And the prion agent found in their bodies was closely related to the BSE prion.
Oh.
So this strongly suggests that humans can contract this disease by eating meat from BSE infected cattle.
Oh.
So
That's when
the brain, spinal cord, retina are thought to be the tissues in cattle that are most concentrated, where these prions are most concentrated. But a 2004 report suggested that they might also be found in muscles, which like muscle tissue, which would be your more common cuts of beef, not just because you had like menudo or, something
brains
like that.
and eggs.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Not just because you had brains and eggs, but like you could have had top sirloin.
Yeah, exactly.
So in order to eliminate that risk, this is when that ban kind of came into play. Yeah. So it was really long, 10 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But BSE actually isn't only found in British cattle. It's found in the US, Canada, and Japan as well. So
you gotta love a good scare.
You gotta love a good scare, people.
Yep.
The older the cow, the more susceptible to the BSE it is, just because it's been around for a while and it's consumed a lot of different types of food and that kind of thing, which would also be like maybe an argument to only eat grass-fed cattle. I'm not sure.
Huh.
But I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, mad cow disease and the ban on British beef. That was a huge one. Also, 5 largest food recalls. The Peanut Corp.
This was
for all the salmonella in their products. So there was a lot of peanut butter products.
Yeah.
And this was, they had knowingly shipped products containing salmonella at least a dozen times between 2007 and 2008.
Yeah. Wasn't this really devastating to the peanut growers of America or something like that?
It was. So it sickened 600 people and about 8-9 deaths.
They were kid deaths, I thought, because it was like peanut butter and jelly sandwich situation. These are the people the kids are eating these things, and they were the ones that were affected, which was so sad.
Yeah. So it occurred in 46 states and in Canada, 46 states in the US and Canada. That actually led them to filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
And I think the CEO got jailed for some time.
Yes.
Was that right?
Yes, that is correct. He had to serve about a year in prison. And then him and the guy like right below him, they both had to pay some pretty hefty fines.
Because they knowingly...
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So, which probably led to that food safety law in 2011 because this happened right before then.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
That
that could have been a contributing factor.
Yeah.
2010, the egg recall that you talked about.
Yep.
That was a big one. Cargill ground turkey. That was a big recall.
Was that salmonella too, I'm assuming?
Yes. So 35 million pounds of ground turkey in August 2011 due to salmonella contamination. The contaminated meat was responsible for 1 death and sickened over 75 people. The plant shut down for a week and reopened. And then they found another, less than a month after reopening, they found another salmonella strain in the company's ground turkey. But it prompted a much smaller recall because they could kind of pinpoint where
they knew where it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's in their best interest to try and grab onto it before it becomes full blown and you have a PR nightmare on your hands. Right?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Menu Foods pet food. They had a massive recall in 2007 where they recalled several brands of dog and cat food that was produced on site. The issue was wheat gluten, and those foods came from a Chinese company. And it was eventually determined that that gluten contained melamine.
Yes.
Which we've talked about different kitchen utensils and stuff like that. And melamine is a common ingredient in some mixing bowls.
Yep.
It's kind of like a plastic of sorts, but it's more of a composite than just plastic.
Yep.
So, yeah.
A lot of pets died.
Yeah.
Wasn't there? I feel like there's a lot.
I have a number on that one.
But it like affected a lot of pets, and that was quite devastating, obviously, to their owners.
Yeah, the FDA received over 10,000 complaints, and they were alerted to at least 14 deaths. But like reported animal deaths can kind of vary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Animals aren't treated the same as humans.
Yeah. In regards to.
And so you don't always take your pet to the vet when they're sick.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably should, but not everybody does. And, they had 14 cases where they could confirm.
But the fact that they had 10,000 complaints.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a significant number.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. In the end, the 2 Chinese companies and their owners were indicted in U.S. federal court. So kind of a big deal.
Yes, it is. It is.
It really is.
Sharon, and maybe this is a discussion for an expert to interview or something like that, but when I was reading about food recalls and like knowing where our food came from, and actually listening to a Pulitzer Prize winning author, journalist who talks specifically about food recalls, he's like, I try really hard to know where my food comes from. I try and eat super local, so I know where everything's coming from. And I was like, it is kind of scary that we just go to the store and just like, yeah, I'm just going to buy this and hope and have faith that everything is being done properly, being manufactured in sanitary conditions.
And stored and transported and all of that in safe conditions
through the entire manufacturing process. Like it just is amazing that we have this much faith in the process and hope that everybody does right.
Right.
Oof. It just is a little scary.
It's one more thing to add to your anxiety list.
Don't worry about, generally, like,
it's like driving a car. You're entrusting your life to other people on the road, even though you're the one that's driving the car.
Yeah. Yeah. You do. You have to have faith that there's not some yahoos out there. So.
And sometimes there is, and we need laws to protect us.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Well, that was enlightening and horrifying. Sharon, thanks for the discussion.
No problem.
E. coli.
But I'll see your meme and raise you a meme.
Which meme are you talking about?
I'm talking about the one of all the Thanksgiving pies. And it says, I've been waiting my whole life for this to happen. These pies are healthier than lettuce right now.
It's so true. Oh, wah, wah.
So eat your pie.
Eat your pie. And eventually the romaine, because they're really on top of it now. So just to let you know, it seems like, I don't know. Keep an eye out. You can check the FDA's website for food recalls, actually. So
Food and drug recalls.
yeah, a different but very related area. Food and drugs.
Introducing interesting ingredients.
Wasn't that I like that, Sharon. What do you
Yay!
think?
I'm so excited about these drops.
Okay, Sharon. Tonight, Lee made mabu tofu. It's a Chinese.
what?
Mabu tofu.
Bless you.
I'm going to spell it for you so you know what it is. It's MAPO. Well, there's actually kind of a few ways. It's Chinese.
Mabu.
Yeah. Occasionally there could be a B. It just depends on how you Romanize it because it's a Chinese word.
Oh, right.
Mabu tofu.
Okay.
It could be tofu, DOUFU, or tofu, TOFU. You can spell it a couple different ways. So the basis is tofu, and it usually has some sort of hot sauce. Usually put red pepper flakes or some sort of chili oil or something like that. You can use fermented bean paste and chili paste and that type of thing, or black beans. The way I learned how to make it actually is really kind of on the sweeter side of things. It does have red pepper flakes and stuff, as well as hoisin sauce and oyster sauce.
Oh, yum.
So Lee made that tonight. And
is it fried? Is it baked?
No,
it's just scrambling it up.
You brown the meat. Usually there's some sort of minced ground meat in there too.
Oh, so it's meat and tofu.
Meat and tofu, and occasionally you can put some other things in there like onions, which is what we do, or some sort of mushroom, because it just makes a really meaty, like a very meaty comfort food.
Okay.
Anyway, long story short, Lee makes it way better than I do. It's really, I mean, it's not traditional mabu tofu anymore because he kind of riffs on it and just has taken it on and done his own thing. So, but he used oyster sauce tonight. And I was like, oyster sauce is so weird.
It is weird.
If you think about it, when I was a kid, I didn't think 2 seconds about oyster sauce. We use oyster sauce a ton when I was a kid. And so I was like, I should probably tell people what that is in our interesting ingredients section. It's basically condiment that is made from oysters or oyster extracts. I love that.
But it's thick like ketchup. It pours like ketchup.
Yep. It's dark and it's dark brown, and it's pretty thick and viscous.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know the history about oyster sauce.
Oh, me neither.
So it was, of course, an accident of how it was discovered and made, as a lot of condiments, right? That we've come to discover. Li Kum Shong from the Guangdong province in China in 1888. And if you know anything about 8, that's a really auspicious year.
Oh, is that the year it was discovered?
1888. Yeah. So he had a tea stall that sold cooked oysters, and he was doing his thing, and he kind of lost track of time, didn't really pay attention to the oysters that were cooking, and they were simmering and stuff, and he noticed that they were starting to smell very strong and odoriferous, very strong aroma. He opened it up and he found that the oyster soup had kind of boiled down to this brownish, thick sauce, and it had a really good taste to it. And so he basically started selling this seasoning to locals.
Wow.
And nowadays it's just like sugar, salt, cornstarch in it. It's thick. It has oyster extracts and such in it. But it does have a very umami flavor to it. So if you want to kind of beef it up / give it some depth and some kind of finish it off that way, if you need something in a Chinese dish, it works really well.
I would liken it to like a Chinese version maybe of Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah,
only thicker.
Yeah, very thick. And I want to say maybe a little on the sweeter side of things.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like fish sauce.
Oh, not at all.
Fish sauce is thin, just really liquidy and very fishy and salty.
You would not know that this
was made from oysters.
No. It kind of is maybe a little saltier version of hoisin sauce, if you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, oyster sauce. I have not ever seen it sold at a American grocery store.
Oh, no, that it is.
Oh,
I
it
got
is?
it at Target last week.
What? Okay, well, I'm apparently not looking because I always just pick it up at the Chinese store. So go to your Oriental markets or your Chinese stores and you can find them there. Many varieties. The OG version is the Lee Kum Kee version.
That's what I got.
He founded that company.
Yeah, so that was at Target on the bottom shelf in the international aisle that like isn't very big.
Oh,
They have
I'm sure
one
it's-
brand of coconut milk.
Oh,
And they have
that
like
is not very
2
big at
brands
all.
of rice noodles and like a 1 brand of soy sauce, but they had that on the bottom shelf.
huh, look at that. Okay. Well, oyster sauce, give it a try. I think it's pretty tasty. It doesn't taste like oysters. Okay.
Yeah, so
Don't you worry about it. And actually, I'm going to say that they do have some vegetarian oyster flavored sauces.
mm-hmm.
So don't you worry. There's options out there.
Yeah, so don't hesitate or anything.
Try
but
it.
You should try it.
Try it.
Thanks for joining us today for our show. You can find us at hungrysquare.com on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and Spotify.
Everybody, we just want to say thanks to Joyce. She provided our awesome sound effects today. So thank you very much, Joyce. That was awesome. We love you guys. You guys are like the best fans ever. So thank you. Thanks for being a part of our Food Nerd family and share our podcast because we want other people to be in our Food Nerd family. Tell them to subscribe and all that jazz. They might not know how to do that, so you might have to help them. Tell them how to subscribe. Anyway, join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry squared, yeah, hungry squared.